This is Larry Hatcher, and this is part 2 of my video on part 180, the correlation coefficient introduction. In part 1 of this video set, I talked about basic concepts related to Pearson correlation coefficient, understanding Pearson correlation coefficient, and interpreting scatter plots. Part 2 is going to be a lot shorter. Mostly I just need to set up a TED Talk video that I'm going to have my class watch. The information in the video comes kind of fast and furious. I like to set it up first so that students can make sense of what they're seeing. So I can skip to page 27 of this PDF document, which corresponds in your course pack to page 18025C. If you're following along in the course pack, the preceding page that I would have covered would have been 18025B, where I showed this scatter plot in discussing coefficient of determination, how to make sense of coefficient of determination. We proceed to 18025C, where I point out that this next bit is going to lead to a Canvas quiz. This says VSpace quiz, but that's the application we used to use. It's now Canvas quiz. The quiz is called VQ180 Scatterplot. It is, as is the case with most of our online quizzes, 5 multiple choice questions, 2 points each. It will be based on a TED Talk video that I'm going to have you watch and a small group discussion exercise that pertains to the TED Talk video. Now, the TED Talk video will be this. I've added this to the document that I prepared for this video. It won't be in your course pack if you're looking at your course pack right now, but it tries to clarify where you're going to go after you watch this video. Above is the name of your next online quiz. This quiz is based on video and discussion exercise. The YouTube video is called The Best Stats You've Ever Seen. It's TED Talk presentation from the researcher Hans Rosling. The video is something like 20 minutes long, but you only need to watch the first 6 minutes of it to get the information that's relevant to our discussion exercise and the Canvas quiz. You should watch the first 6 minutes of that TED Talk video after I've gone over the next few pages that I'm going to go over, which will end on page 18025I. These next few pages will set up the video and the discussions exercise and the online quiz so that all of it should make more sense to you. All right, the video that I'm going to have you watch is a TED Talk presentation from a researcher named Hans Rosling. His subtitle is Debunking Third World Myths with the Best Stats You've Ever Seen. Hans Rosling, the late Hans Rosling, is, among other things, author of a terrific book called Factfulness. Researchers had a relationship with the United Nations, has had access to big data sets from the United Nations. Some of those analyses he reports in his book called Factfulness. One of the purposes of that book is to help people better understand the nature of the world and to understand that the world is different. The way the world actually is today is somewhat different from the stereotypes that many of us have concerning it. And here's just some notes reminding me about that TED Talk video. The way I usually set it up is with these notes. Video, animated scatter plot from TED Conference. You've probably heard me say before, TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, Design. This is a presentation from the late Hans Rosling. Purpose of this video, why I like to show it in my PSYC 299 class, is to show that a great deal of information can be conveyed in a single scatter plot. So far in my lecture, the scatter plots that I've shown you have been relatively simple, showing just the relationship between two variables. But with software, there's no reason scatterplot can't convey more than the mere bivariate relationship between two variables. Maybe we could have the size of the dots in a scatterplot represent something. Maybe we could have the color of the dots represent something. Maybe we could have the dots move to show how the relationship between the variables changes with the passage of time. Those are among the points that I want to make by having the class watch this video. As I've alluded to before, this is going to be the subject of an online quiz, not a VSpace quiz, but a Canvas quiz. Multiple choice test questions. Follow along with these notes. This says take notes from my lectures. You might need to take 3 pages of notes, but in fact, if you're in my class this year, you won't need to do so. I went ahead and made a PDF of all these pages that I'm about to show. You can download the PDF that has these lecture note pages. It's in the supplementary notes section of the module for the current unit that we're studying right now. And let's begin by backing up and taking a look at the basic scatter plot that Rosling is going to show in this video that you're about to see. I like to talk about this some because if I don't, I find that it comes so quickly, some students don't know what it is that they have seen. The basic scatter plot shows the relationship between 2 variables, an x variable and a y variable. In these scatter plots, the x variable is fertility, the number of children in a typical family in the nation. The dots in this scatter plot do not represent individual people as they typically do in psychology research. Instead, a dot in the scatter plot is going to represent a nation. This is a nation. This is a different nation. X variable is fertility, the number of children in a typical family in this nation. The y variable, the outcome variable, is life expectancy. Does the typical person in this country have relatively long life? If so, the dots will be located up here. Or does a typical person in this country have a relatively short life? If so, the dots would be located down here. So the data points are individual nations. The x variable is fertility, the number of children in a typical family in this country. The y variable is life expectancy. How old is a typical person in this country at the time of death? That is what we're going to see in Hans Rosling's animated scatter plot. As I indicated, the scatter plot is animated, and the animation represents the passage of time. Scatter plot begins in 1962. Most of the time while Rosling is talking, he shows the nature of the world as it was in 1962. He has a scatter plot for each year from 1962 to 2003. He starts running the animation, and it's the passage of time, beginning in 1962 and ending in 2003. You will see that the location of the dots change with the passage of time, and the way that the location of those dots change is sort of the subject of the small group discussion exercise that I normally have the class do, as the subject of the 5 multiple choice questions that you'll find on the online quiz. Let's see, this is the note, these are the notes I typically show to my class at this point. The following 6 questions are already typed up for you. They appear in Appendix E of your PSYC 299 course pack. You remember Appendix E, the E stands for exercises, discussion exercises. It is discussion exercise 180E1. In your course pack, it's in Appendix E, and it appears on page E40 of Appendix E. Here I say you'll still need to take short notes on the answers to these questions. If this was a typical lecture where we're meeting face-to-face, I would have the class watch the video, and then I would have them go to groups and work on this small group discussion exercise. Since we're doing this online this semester, I'm going to pose the questions to you. I want you to have the questions in the back of your mind as you watch the video, and I would encourage you to jot down answers to the questions before you turn to my Canvas quiz. As I've indicated before, this semester I give you 3 submissions on these Canvas quizzes, but you'll do well if you go ahead and have the questions in front of you before you do your first submission. That makes it more likely that you'll get 100% by the time you've made your 3rd submission on the thing. Here are the questions that I want you to have in mind as you watch this video with Hans Rosling presenting the best stats you ever saw. This is the discussion exercise. It's on page E40 in your course pack. It says this discussion exercise is based on video animated scatter plot, which I presented in class. Exercise also requires lecture notes that I provided in class. If you download my supplementary notes, you'll have all the notes that you need. These are the questions that I want you to bear in mind as you're watching the video. What's represented by the size of a given dot that appears in a scatter plot? I indicated with statistical software we have today, it's possible to present all kinds of information in a scatter plot. This scatter plot doesn't include just dots, but the size of the dots means something. What does it represent? What's represented by the color of a given dot in the scatter plot? I decided this one I would give to you because in truth this is an old video, and depending on what kind of screen you're looking at it on, you may not be able to tell exactly what the different colored dots maybe represent. So this one I'll give to you. What's represented by the color of a given dot in the scatter plot? It's the continent on which the country is located. Item 2, what's represented by the color of a given dot in the scatter plot? Color of the dot represents the continent on which the country is located. Question 3, over the course of time, what happens to fertility in China? Video does not say exactly, but my experience has been that my statistics classes usually know what happened in China in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And you see this policy decision reflected in what happens with the dot that represents China in the video. So question 3, over the course of time, what happens to fertility in China and why? Even though the video doesn't say, I find that most of my students know the answer to that one anyway. Question 4, over the course of time, what happens to life expectancy in Africa and why? By watching the dots, you'll see what happens to life expectancy in Africa, and Rosling talks about the reasons for that as he's narrating the animated scatter plot. Question 5, and this is a biggie for my statistics students. Question 5, in 1962, what's the direction, that is, what's the sign of the correlation between fertility and life expectancy? That is it a positive correlation? Is it a negative correlation? Is it a zero correlation? Based on the information that I provided in part 1 of this video set, you should be able to handle question 5. Question 6, I'll give you a heads up, is not going to appear on my multiple choice quiz. Question 6 is a discussion question that I like to have my class do when we're meeting face-to-face, because it gives them the opportunity to develop their critical thinking skills. Question 6 is generate your own theory to explain the correlation between fertility and life expectancy. What do you think is causing what? Do you think there's maybe an underlying third variable? This is always a great question to discuss in class, but since we're doing this online for this semester, you don't need to worry about question 6. You can be confident nothing related to question 6 is going to wind up on your Canvas quiz. Now, as I indicated before, the YouTube video has the subtitle, Best Stats You've Ever Seen, presented by Hans Rosling. You should watch the first 6 minutes of it. I have the URL for this video in the directions for the current module. Go to Canvas into the module that we're studying right now. The first item in that module is going to be the directions. Open up that directions document. It'll have the link that'll take you right to the video, and in truth, you don't necessarily need the link. Just go to YouTube and type in Best Stats You've Ever Seen by Hans Rosling. It'll take you to the video. You only need to worry about the first 6 minutes of it. So watch the video with this set of questions in hand. Watch the video with this set of questions in hand. The questions that are on page E40. Once you're satisfied that you've got the answers to the questions, you can turn to the Canvas quiz, and there you'll find 5 multiple choice questions that are a subset of those open-ended questions on the discussion exercise. Canvas quiz is called VQ180 Scatterplot. It'll be available for 1 week. You'll be allowed 3 submissions on it. If you have questions about the video, you can shoot me an email, or you can bring them up at the review session that we'll have prior to test number 4. That's it for this video. Keep your eyes out for new emails and additional announcements from me regarding the next thing we're going to do in this class.